Good for you.
I can't figure out the left and right on this webcam.
Oh, okay. Right,
Yeah.
we're all live anyway. I'll just wait for a few seconds just to see if it comes in on.
Let me see. So
WP builds.
Where am I sending people, Nathan? To the group?
Yeah, just to the WP builds. The easiest way to remember it is wpbuilds.com/Facebook.
Perfect.
Oh, thank you. You're actually sending people to the group. You are considerate.
I'll tweet as well.
Check you all out. Ooh. What? I've got some guy in the Facebook group who is going live, apparently. That's not me. No, that's just a video. I think we might need to look at that when this is all over. It looks slightly suspicious to me. Yeah, there we are. Right, in which case, let's kick off. Hello, everybody. I'm getting slightly better at this. I would no way claim to be a professional yet, but I'm becoming more confident with the technology and, when I press buttons, things working. So this is our weekly little roundup of the WordPress news. If you go over to wpbuilds.com, and then if you go to the archive section and the news archive section, then you'll see a whole list of all the recent news updates. And the one closest to the top left is the most recent one. It's called Sausages. I always name them after food because I'm silly that way. And so it's the sausage episode. And in this episode, we talk about all the stuff that's been happening in WordPress during the last week. And it would be a bit silly for me to do that all by myself. So I get some mugs to come on and talk to me as well. And I'd first of all like to point out that both Dan and I, look at us, we're in matching branded T-shirts for the Press Forward podcast for WPML. So I might as well start there. Dan, you've not been on this before. Thank you. Dan Maby is going to introduce himself. Hello, Dan.
Hello. Well, as you just said, I'm Dan Maby from WPML. We're a community charity supporting and promoting positive mental health within the community. And yes, as Nathan just mentioned, we are part. Nathan actually runs the Press Forward podcast for us. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It's good fun to do. Actually, on that note, we've just released a new podcast series which came out about 33 minutes ago. Go over to wpnup.org/podcasts. Then the most recent one, if everything has worked correctly, the most recent one will be the first in a 14-part mini-series, which we're doing in the run-up to WordCamp in Europe, in Berlin, in a few days' time. And we're doing one a day. They're about 10 minutes long, and they're little positive WordCamp stories. So if you've got any reason not to go to WordCamp, if something about WordCamp is making you spooked and you thought it's not for me, go and listen to those one a day and see if we can turn that story around for you. And by Paul Lacey. Hello, Paul.
Hello. How you doing?
You all right? You've got your elevator pitch ready again.
Try. Paul Lacey here from the Dicky Bird Studio, and we're a WordPress and UX agency.
That's the one. Yeah, that's great. I think it's short and sweet. It's perfectly good. Yeah. And we also have Vito Peleg. Hello, Vito.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
And tell us about you so that we all know who you are.
So I'm Vito, and I run an agency here in London, but I also just launched a brand new plugin called WP Feedback that is meant to help WordPress professionals gather content, approve designs, and provide supports to the clients visually.
We WP Builds, that is. I did a live webinar with Vito last week, and
that was awesome.
Yeah, it was good actually. I didn't do anything. I literally pressed the button, made it go live, and you did everything. But it was good in that we got to see what was in the plugin. And if you've got any thoughts about that kind of thing, go and check out the live webinar. It'll be somewhere down in the WP Builds Facebook group, probably below this. It looks like a Kanban board. The sort of freeze frame of the video looks like a Kanban board. So go and check that out and see what Vito's been up to. So, should we get stuck into it? WP Builds WordPress news for last week. Now, this kind of means nothing to me, the first one, because I've only been using WordPress, I always say 2 years, and that's just a complete lie now. I think it's more like 5, maybe.
For 3 years, you've been saying 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what's your age? I'm 29 again. So anyway, for me, this feels like an impossibly large amount of time because I've definitely not been using it for this long. But Sweet 16, says WP Tavern. They're highlighting the fact that 16 years ago, last week, Mike Little from the UK and Matt Mullenweg, who has sort of occupied that founder space a little bit, I think, forked B2 Cafe Log, and which eventually became the CMS that we know and love, WordPress, 16 years ago. So let's go around. How long you been using WordPress?
Me? I think it was 2007.
Ooh, all right.
When I first found, I've Googled WordPress, not Googled, searched in my Gmail for the word WordPress, and I found an install from back then.
Nice. So you're a proper pro. Anybody gonna beat Paul's 12-year reign?
I'm 2008.
Oh.
2008. Actually, the first website I built was stockmarketfordummies.net, which was like back then there was all these AdSense websites. So you just build it based on keywords. So I built like 10 of these in like 2 months. And since then, WordPress has been my tool of choice because that was so easy that I just stuck with it.
Yeah. So 11 years for Vito, 12 years for Paul. What about you, Dan?
2005.
Oh, come on. Slam dunk home run.
Version 1.5 was the
wow. So, okay. Let's talk this one through, because like when I came to WordPress, it was fully functional. Everything looked more or less how it looks now. I've gone through none of the UI changes. There's a lovely picture here of a terrible, well, by modern standards, UI, which was the original WordPress. I don't know what it was called at that point, but it was, it was basically super duper basic. And so what was it all those years ago? Again, if we go in the same order, Paul, Vito, Dan, what was it, Paul, that made you pick WordPress? Because at that point, let's be honest, there was a bunch of rivals, and I'm not sure that WordPress stood out dramatically at that point. So why WordPress, Paul?
I found the original email, actually.
Nice.
And I'm sorry, but I was also 2005, according to the email, but November 2005, so Dan was probably before me because I was right at the end of the year.
Oh, harmony is restored.
I was working for an arts organisation, and we were making a website that was, like a website where you can download wallpapers for your computer.
Yep.
And a friend of mine called Dave, whose nickname in the email is Squidge, apparently, he was designing the wallpapers, and we wanted to make a website where you could go and download these free wallpapers. There was a lot of people doing like DeviantArt type web wallpapers then, and I can see the email here just saying we finally got a workable design for the Stumped website. Nice one, Squidge, designed to fit with the WordPress blogging system that I've installed and semi-configured, ready for the template integration. Awesome. So yeah, it was like a hobby website that we were doing just for fun. For Dave's things.
That's incredible. So you were right at the start. By the way, Matt Davies, who's in the Facebook, he's saying July 2003. Ka-ching, boom.
Is that Matt, 0.72, was it?
Yeah, anybody beats Matt gets a biscuit. What about you, Vito? Can you remember what your first project was?
So it was for like, I just did this course of how to make money online. I've been trying since, but my first attempt was through AdSense, which was basically like, back then when you just posted something into Google, WordPress was just the best platform to rank high on the. Now they changed everything, so it's a lot harder than it used to be. So you would just find like a keyword that has a lot of traffic and build an entire website around it just to get the ads revenue. That was nice. It kind of like, but back then it was nice because it was like $100 a month for each website that is generated, and I was really young, so that was amazing for me back then. After I experimented with Wix, and I quickly ran back to WordPress for client stuff when I started doing that.
And Dan?
So I needed to get my business at the time online, and it was a mobile pub. So I was completely outside of the kind of digital space, although it was something that I enjoyed just tinkering with and messing around with. And I tried Joomla and just didn't get on with it at all. I was just struggling, and it was usual. For me, it was Dreamweaver, chucking everything up on it as HTML files. It just wasn't working for me. And yeah, stumbled across WordPress. I think it was 2.0 was when it started to become more like the WordPress that we know now.
Yep.
In terms of the look and feel.
I came to WordPress from a mixture of Drupal and Magento. Magento I'd kind of given up on just because it was just too much effort. You had to really double down on it. I think if you were to do exactly that, then it would be a very lucrative thing to do. But I just didn't have the clients to justify doing that all the time. And Drupal had just gone through a change from 7.8, and whereas WordPress has historically 5.0 was a bit of a break in that trend, but Drupal, between point changes, so 6 to 7, 7 to 8, you can just chuck it out the window. Basically, you've got to start again, especially with templating. So that was why I came to it.
Have you seen the WP History website by 93
No.
Digital?
What's that?
What's the full history of what the admin and the front end of the site look like?
Yes, I have seen it, but I didn't realize that's what it was called. So was it Google WP History?
It's the 93 Digital team did a WP History.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, that is nice. Okay, so there we go. Let's see if there's any comments about that. Just talking about Vito. You can go and read that. 2005 for Mike Sale. David McCann, 2013. Yay. Some of you guys have got some proper heritage. I feel like a complete rank outsider now, but nevertheless. So there we go. Happy birthday, 16th birthday. And fair to say that all four of us, and probably everybody in the Facebook group with WordPress, WP Build, should I say, basically it's our lives now.
Yeah.
Literally could not make ends meet without it. So, it's easy.
It's incredible.
Easy to just dismiss it as it's a funny thing. But it's not. It's a literal game changer. And there's a lot of people around the world who, they go to extraordinary lengths, like they bake WordPress cakes.
Yeah.
And they meet up. There was an article here about somewhere in Gujarati, in Ahmedabad, where they had got together, thrown a party, made a cake and all that sort of stuff. It just looks really nice. I think it's a great excuse. And
it's interesting. It's interesting as a community, we are growing with it, and we're actually. I remember at meetups and WordCamps where I was 10 plus years ago, and the change in my age personally and the change in me as I've gone through, it's been quite interesting having conversations and seeing other people changing and aging as we go through.
Yeah, or not, as the case may be. Some young people coming along and making us all feel really old. Dan, because you particularly because you're involved very much in like WordCamps and meetups and things like that. Has that side of things changed as well? Obviously it feels to me like they just get bigger and bigger. The events grow and the number of tickets sold get bigger. But is that generally speaking true? Do we just see more community interaction than ever before?
I guess I think it's probably more of an awareness of it. So there are more WordCamps. There's certainly the number of WordCamps that are available has grown. And yeah, I guess there's a raised awareness that tickets increase, attendee numbers increase.
What's I think the WordCamp in Europe that we were just mentioning, this podcast series, I think they've sold all of them. And I believe it was approaching, if it wasn't 3,000, it was very close to 3,000, either north or south, I don't know. But imagine that. Imagine getting 3,000 people to travel across the world to go to an event but it's breathtaking. So yeah, very cool. Very, very cool indeed. That was on the WP Tavern, just so that you know. The next one, if we're all right to move on, is also on the WP Tavern. Essentially, if you listen to this news bulletin, I am
just really good.
Yeah, it is though. It is, because they're the best, aren't they? They are the best. They really are. Sarah Gooding, in particular, seems to write just an immense amount of great stuff. So, okay, let's get into the meats and the bones of some new stuff. So, Gutenberg 5.8 released with prototype of new block-based widget screen. Very simply, you've got from what I remember from reading this, you've got the ability to change like heading colors and things. In other words, it's a little minor improvement in the way that you can handle text and background colors and things like that. But also quite nice, if you've been using the gallery block, you can now, I think, move stuff around. If I'm right, you can actually just sort of click arrows and move images around. And so it's, you know, if you've been using a page builder, it doesn't feel all that dramatic. But if you've been using Gutenberg recently, these little increments kind of all start to add up to feel like something really important is happening. Anybody got anything to add about this one?
To be honest, I haven't even started experimenting with any of these blocks or anything. So I'm kind of, because I'm coming on these calls, I need to catch up with this. So come back to me next time.
Well, the thing about all this is, I think at the minute, if you've got a heritage with a page builder, so, you know, Breezy, Beaver Builder, Elementor, whatever, it feels to me, I'm going to be shot for saying this, aren't I? But it feels to me at the minute, why would you yet? And I know that that's foolish. It is there and it's available, but I'm so happy with the suite of things that I've got. I feel I'm reading these things and I'm looking at them and occasionally experiment, but I don't think we're quite there yet. However, it feels like the bricks are sort of lining up very nicely to create, what am I going to say now, like a wall of Gutenberg greatness or something. So it feels like, you know, give it a bit of time.
It's coming up,
yeah, absolutely. Anybody else? Shall I move on?
Well, I don't think we're seeing the end. We're seeing the beginning of the end of themes here. With, this approach.
Yep. I mean, it feels like that's been being said. Yeah, headers, footers, and all of that kind of stuff. Actually, that kind of links us in beautifully with the next article, which you won't believe where I've sourced this one from. It's from a website called WP Tavern, and it's written. This particular article is written by Sarah Gooding. That's really, she's a total novice, and it's Automatic is testing an experimental full site editing plugin is the name of the article, and this to me looks really interesting because don't use this, by the way. It says very clearly at the bottom of this article, you know, it's like pre-beta. It's just not worth putting on a live site because it's full of errors and problems. But essentially now, if you're a complete novice user of Gutenberg, you can click pages, add new, and this like template selection, and it's just like a wireframe, you know, header, 3 blog posts all in a row, or a contact us kind of layout. And somebody in the Facebook group, I apologize, somebody in our WP Builds Facebook group made exactly the point you just made, Dan, about, you know, themes being dead, but also mentioning, you know, is this the beginning of the takeover of page builders by Gutenberg? So I'm going to let that drop and say anybody comment on that.
Did you see the other plugin that has come out? The other experimental plugin. It's the kind of it's called Classic Full Site. It's got 5 million installs so far. Yeah.
And what does that do? Oh,
I'm intrigued.
It's literally
I'm just messing.
That took me a
Classic
moment.
Full Site.
I think as soon as you said 5, it's got like a 5-star review, hasn't it? A couple of people have been using it. I think,
exactly.
It's the classic editor. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, who still uses the classic editor? Quite a lot. I do. Dan doesn't. Okay. Yeah. Have you switched entirely over then, Dan?
We have. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I mean, it can all be done. So some nice updates, basically.
About the last one, the on a non-bad joke version. I've been looking, you know, because I've got a license with that page builder. Well, no, the full site editor, Oxygen. And it's really cool. It's amazing how it works. It's really far ahead in all sorts of ways. But one of my big reservations on it is that it does take over the entire website. Mm-hmm. So that felt weird to me because, you know, the whole idea of widgets and customizer and then hooks and filters and headers and footers and the page content, archives, categories, tags, taxonomies, all that stuff. If it's like I've got a reservation about using a new tool that's already doing that, but then maybe is WordPress going in that direction anyway? Of this whole, you know, what Gutenberg turns into is a complete visual takeover of the old architecture that we had and a completely different architecture in the future? I don't know what the answer is, but it's just what my thought in relation to that item.
I think it's going to be really hard to switch away from the old architecture because the entire ecosystem is built on it.
Yeah.
I feel that give it a number of years and Gutenberg will be kind of like synonymous with, I think most people will use it to some extent, but I can't see the third-party ecosystem for page builders and things disappearing, because the point that I made in the news that I read out earlier today was that, Gutenberg's got to cope with every single person who uses WordPress, and so it can't overreach. It can't overstep. If it starts to go into every single possible setting, we assume that page builders are easy. They're actually really hard. There's a lot of getting used to them. There's a lot of finicky bits. There's a lot of things that go wrong. There's a lot of things, there's just lots of scope for mucking it up. And so although we use them all the time and it's dead easy, it's not that easy. And hopefully Gutenberg will present that nice middle ground, does enough, not too much, leave the page builders to have their cake as well as eat it as well. Vito, were you going to say something?
I think it encourages.
Sorry. No, go on, Dan.
Yeah,
I think it encourages innovation. It encourages the page builders. The likes of Beaver Builder, for example, with their thema and where they were, that was quite far ahead of the curve in terms of what was available at the time. It just continues that encouragement of it.
Yep. Vito?
I totally agree. I think that one of the cool things about the ecosystem is that there's always more than one solution for something. So the competition creates the progress, But now that WordPress themselves got in the game trying to compete with the page builders, it's going to push them even further. Even though I think in the past year, there's been such a gap that has been opened, by some of the major ones, which is going to take a few years for the rest of the people to catch up.
I think this full site editing plugin is intended for .com. I think that's where they're building it out. I don't quite know what the relationship is with .org and .com vis-a-vis this plugin, but I think that's where they're sort of testing it for, maybe get some data. The article, to quote, says the functionality included is in the full site editing plugin may also be coming to Jetpack. Automatics developers are currently researching the best way to include it. So far, it has been developed as a separate plugin and not geared fully towards becoming a Jetpack module. It's not recommended for use in production. So there you go. Interesting times, though. They are changing, as Mr. Dillon sang so famously. Moving on. Pantheon, giant hosting company who I've never had any connection with at all. I don't believe I've ever deployed anything on Pantheon, have acquired visual regression testing platform Staging Pilot. This, I believe, if memory serves, Staging Pilot was written by Nathan Tyler, who we had on the WP Builds podcast, if it's the same Nathan Tyler, because he released a product called Simple Schedule. I've forgotten. Simply Schedule Appointments, sort of an appointment booking system. And they released this tool. Paul's gone. They released this tool so that we can sort of like check automatically if things are balked on a migration. And it seems like a super sensible thing for a major hosting company to buy, but I've never used it. I've always just checked things manually if I've migrated them. But I can imagine at scale, if you were taking over another hosting company and need to pull in 1,000, 1,500, a million websites, something like this with automated tests would be fabulous. But I can't see me ever using anything like this. It's open to you guys.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Yes, we visually regressed there for a bit.
I did, didn't I? I managed
to get in. I reckon we managed to get in 8 or 9 really good insults whilst you were not here.
Don't watch the playback.
No. No, we were just talking about Pantheon, which I don't think anybody's probably got anything to say.
We've used Visual Ping. Oh, he's gone again.
He's gone again. He's complete. He's whimsical today. Sorry, you've used Visual.
We use Visual Ping for the visual regression, but you then got WPMU Dev has got one in there. Automated is
the cowboy one. I don't know what they do with that. I don't know. Is it just like a 404 check, or do they actually take screen grabs and look at pixel levels? Because my understanding is that's what this tool by Nathan Tyler, Staging Pilot, does. It takes screenshots, before and after, and then compares it almost like pixel level. Nothing's moved, everything's identical. We're good to go.
Yeah, so that's what the WPMU Dev, the Automate, and the Visual Ping platforms do.
That's an interesting question. Dan, with your sites and Vito with your sites, do you trust like a completely automated update process, or do you take some control of that yourselves?
Go on, Dan.
I was going to say we've taken the view that we'd rather have an updated site that's broken than an insecure site that's not updated.
Yep.
That's interesting. I'm actually we're doing just like once a month now. The developers, that's today's focus, running through all the sites and doing the updates. But we are using within managed WP, you have this option of safe updates where it takes these screenshots and matches them. So we do use that to make it easier on the testing, but it still doesn't replace the fact that a person goes through the website, checks, submits all the main forms, and make sure that all the pages are still there.
Oh, you do all that, do you? You assign somebody to update, then manually check like a suite of 3 or 4 different pages, like the contact us form, and tries to. Oh, that's
exactly
interesting.
Submitting the forms, making sure that they go through, getting a product to check out if there's WooCommerce.
My approach is just to update. I basically do it every single day. I could switch on the automatic updates, but I am more than happy to just go in and, 8, 9 o'clock, I go in. I'm using main WP, which is, basically like managed WP. And I just click the one button. I actually go through and I look at the list very quickly. I look at the list of all the plugins and I exclude ones that are kind of like a one-off that I'm not that sure about. I've managed to get that down quite a lot, so mostly everything is really reliable and trusted. And then I do what you do basically, Vito. I just go and check the sites quickly, click on a few links and make sure everything's okay. And so that's my approach. Less bulletproof than yours, but far less automated than Dan's. So that's quite interesting. Okay, there you go. Right, okay, next one then is... Oh, he's back, is he? Right. Okay. Shush.
I don't know what happened. Sorry.
No. It's fine. It's fine.
Conflict with the plugin update.
Yeah. That's what it was. It's that internet connection down there in the south of England. It's a bit archaic down there, isn't it?
I'm in the Midlands.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's the south of England to me.
Everyone else is north or south.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle.
Right, yeah. Okay, so that was Staging Pilot. Very interesting. Now, this one, I don't know how many of you got a chance to read through this. The truth is, you probably didn't get a lot of time to look at it because it's absolutely massive. I believe this is the second time that Delicious Brains have put this together. It's a very long title. But it says, how much money do WordPress developers make? That and more insights on the life of a WordPress developer in our first ever industry report. So by the sounds of that, this is the first time. So really interesting data comes out of this, certainly from my point of view, now being like really, I'm trying to put out lots of content about WordPress. So it's quite important to me, I suppose, to know this stuff. And a lot of it was a little bit surprising, and I really didn't expect it. Okay, so most people using WordPress, according to this survey, there's only 422 responses. So, caveat emptor, I suppose, a little bit. More than half are in North America. I found that quite interesting. About 33%-ish are in Europe. And it sort of goes down after that considerably, down into like single digits, 5% and so on. The vast majority of people, well, not the vast majority, sorry, 40 let's call it 43%, are in the 30 to 39 age bracket, followed by the 40 to 49. I don't know about you. That makes me feel, okay, I'm in the majority there somewhere. And then it drops off. You got a few lower and a few high. So that's intriguing. But this one made me sort of sit up. The next one, what gender do you identify with? And we're looking at close to 90% male. I thought that was quite intriguing. And then it just goes on, about the amount of time that you've been coding, whether this is your first career, and then buried somewhere low down is the sort of, the clickbaity one about what do you earn, but I'm not going to get into that. Did anybody get a chance to read this, and did anything pop up as kind of like, oh, didn't see that one coming?
I haven't seen this one, but I actually just published one. So we did with the beta group. We surveyed 500 WordPress professionals, mostly for my kind of knowledge and to understand what people are, if our solution is needed. But again, the results were really interesting. So we wrapped it into a report, and now it's been given as part of my email sequence for every person that joins in there. I'm actually thinking, maybe you guys can tell me what you think. I'm thinking of printing 500 of these for Europe, for Berlin. So basically having like a benchmark report of how people do the inner processes within their businesses, as well as I did a survey of what's your go-to theme, what's your main page builder, and some really interesting things came up there.
Did you get any sort of data about, did you ask things about, what their age was and stuff like that? Or was it just generally surrounded by, what plugins and what themes, that kind of thing?
I thought plugins and themes were, I call it like the bonus round on there. It was mostly around the business processes. How do you communicate with your clients? How do you get content? How do you approve designs? How do you provide support? So I get a notion of how the market looks like.
Yeah.
But then we just wrapped it, designed it in like a nice PDF, just because I found it really interesting to look at as an agency owner. Having some benchmarks is always great, and this sounds like it's really close.
This is the sort of article that I couldn't read without the graphs. It's the graphs that suck me in. It's a little bit dry and a little bit uninteresting.
Yeah, it has to have beautiful graphs.
Yeah, but if your business is WordPress, I suppose a lot of this is really important. Especially around like the age that people are getting into it and whether they're comfortable doing it and all this sort of stuff. So, Paul, Dan, anything strike you when you read that one?
I wondered. I mean, I know it's only a small sample, but I wondered, is WordPress not so popular in people in the early 20s? Are they doing something else, or?
That's an interesting, because it didn't feature heavily in that age group. Let me find that. So five, let's call it 5% were 17 or younger. I suppose that's to be expected. We're still at school age for many people. 18 to 20 was the dark green one, and I can't see that at all. So that's a bit weird.
So small, yeah.
Well, is it anywhere? So does that literally mean
of the people who, the audience of so in Vito's case, it was the audience that you've already got, so it's kind of irrelevant. It's relevant to your audience that you're talking to already.
No, not really, because I was collecting just randomly from, these were the early access people, so it's just a nice kind of representation of the community. From all over the world. But it is interesting about this, and something that came up as well as I was speaking because I was talking to the community a lot in the past few months. I heard Laravel comes up way too many times in conversations, like, I don't do WordPress anymore, man. That kind of feel. But other than that, nothing that popped. I don't know of anything that can replace it at this stage.
Yeah.
The other age group. So basically, the vast majority, a full 70%, are between the ages of 30 and let's say 50. I think that's really interesting. Really,
so it's kind of Facebook's key age demographic, isn't it? I think.
And also, I suppose to be bear in mind, I think these are people who identify themselves as career WordPress people, not just sort of casual users. Anyway, if you're in the WordPress space, sorry, Dan, was there anything you wanted to add before?
I was just going to say there's a couple that struck me. The gender was a big one, with nearly 90% identifying as male. Doesn't necessarily, from the events that that I attend, I don't feel that really is very representative.
Yeah, agreed.
There's
Agreed.
definitely a far higher percentage of individuals identifying themselves as female at the events that I'm often at and partake in. But the other one that was interesting was the is coding your first career, and it's almost an exact 50-50 split.
Yeah, that was surprising. Yeah, that is surprising. So that means a lot of WordPress people who identify themselves as, they're using WordPress as a way to generate revenue for their life, are doing it part-time. I don't know what that, we don't go into the split on that, but it is a small sample. It's only 420, but also it's sort of going with that as well. The question was, do you currently work remotely? Nearly 60%, 58.4% said yes, and only 14.7% said no. The rest was fitting into the bracket of sometimes. So that's interesting. Getting towards 2/3 are working remotely. I don't know what that means in real terms. Is remotely, does it count? Like, am I working remotely because I'm in my house as opposed to working for some, in an office somewhere for some other person? I don't know. But yeah, really interesting article. Well worth a look if you're into this sort of data.
Interesting. We've seen a very similar stat actually for people working remotely at the through our survey we just trying to run through WPN to mental health. And
do you want to talk about that, because that does actually fit, although it's not a survey about WordPress in general? WPN ka-ching. We've recently been doing a survey, and we actually got quite a few more respondents, closer to 1,000, I believe.
We've actually had almost 1,200 respondents.
Oh, okay, that's gone up dramatically in just a few days. What did that, give us the broad outlines of what the purpose of that survey was, and what were the headline results?
So it was really to understand, to make sure that what we were wanting to deliver through WPN was appropriate for the community. To make sure that it was, and obviously we can structure our services and products for the community based on the information that we have. And there's been quite some surprising stats coming out of it. We haven't obviously gone through a full review as yet, but just looking at some of the snapshots that we've seen. There's a few worrying stats in there, and a few stats that do match up with some of the other data that we're seeing across the community at the moment.
Yeah, there were. Worrying is a good word for it, isn't it? There were some questions asked which led to some data which, mean that the WPN Up charity has a strong purpose. My phone is ringing. I hope you can't hear it. It's shuddering in the background. Okay, shall we move on? Let's go to the next article, which oddly requires Dan's input again, because I put out a podcast this week for WPN called Being Open About Depression. Now, many of you, I'm sure, will have heard of Cory Miller, who was working for iThemes. He no longer works for iThemes, but he was the founder. And it was a very open, honest interview from Cory in a kind of key area that WPN are working in. I don't know if any of you had a chance to listen to it. I suspect Dan more than anybody else probably did. But any thoughts on that? It was just a nice little take. Somebody really honest, basically saying, you don't need to hide this stuff. You can be open. You can be honest. And I know that Paul you've talked about this publicly as well. So Dan first.
Well, go Dan. Yeah.
I'll go for Paul.
Okay. Well, I didn't know this episode was coming. Actually, I knew you. I think, Nathan, you told me that you were interviewing Cory Miller at some point, but I assumed that was for WP Builds. But so that one came through, and it was pretty exciting for me because Cory Miller is probably the most relevant inspiration for me in that whole talking openly about these sort of things. And he doesn't know it, but he's my main inspiration for the talk I did at Agency Transformation Live. So I watched the talk I'm talking about. He did a talk at WordCamp Denver 2015, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I just watched that talk, and it was just, and I didn't know where it was going, and the talk just blew me away with his honesty. So when with everything I've done talking openly about this, it pretty much goes back to watching that talk and having massive respect for what he did in that talk and everything that he's done since then. So what a brilliant episode. Just highly recommend listening to that one. It was really good. Well done, guys.
He was. He mentioned through it that it was the most open that he's been about his personal challenges and struggles with depression, and it was an exciting episode because similarly for me that talk that he gave back in Denver was very, very inspiring for me, and just made me realize that we need to be more open about mental health within our community. It was I probably shouldn't say this, but this is a bit of an exclusive for WP Builds, but Cory is actually going to be joining WP Up as a trustee.
Nice.
So we're really excited to have him on board and have him supporting WP Up and enabling us to move forward to support a much wider community. So that's very exciting for us.
On a sort of personal level, he was a really nice guy to talk to. Really, really deeply nice, pleasant guy. It was just a real pleasure. With these things, we try to chop them to, I don't know, let's say 30 minutes anecdotally to get it down. There was an awful lot that got edited out that it would have been nice if we'd put it in. But I tried to edit it such that the important information came out. It was an awful lot of just lovely, nice stuff that just got left on the floor, sadly. But I was just sort of thrilled to talk to him because a bit like you two, he's a bit of a. I mean, he was the man, wasn't he? Just like doing all the moving and shaking, amazing company that he had, and it was just an absolute pleasure. But like he said in his talk, it's just blocked off from a lot of us. We don't want to talk about this stuff. There's so much shame attached to it. I totally get it. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know if it's from birth, from the role models saying, "Oh, just get on with it, you'll be fine." I don't know, but an absolute pleasure when somebody, like you say, this talk that he did is Denver, right? Is that the right one?
Yeah, check it.
When he stood up, and I think probably if you were there at the time, you probably weren't expecting that. Suddenly this amazingly influential guy just drops that bomb and everybody's, wow, okay, he did it, I can probably do it. And fast forward a couple of years later, you've got Dan setting up the charity WP and Up to address things like this, and it's wonderful, it's nice, it's helpful, it's important, it's meaningful. That's all.
If anyone enjoys that one, or resonates with that particular episode, there's a really good podcast episode on the Studio Press podcast from a few years ago. Where is it? Brian Gardner? Is that the guy from Studio Press?
Yeah.
Brian Gardner has Cory Miller on the show, and they're talking about the old days. And Brian Gardner pretty much breaks down, just apologizing to Cory Miller for not knowing yet. In his own kind of way of saying, he was kind of saying, I was spiteful, I was trying to beat iThemes, Studio Press versus iThemes and stuff, and he apologizes for having any, if he had any kind of influence on Cory's state of mind, which Cory just, says, no, it wasn't that, it's just me. But it's a wonderful episode, to sort of see after years of all this, competition and that fierce time in the WordPress when it was really going crazy in that space, to see the two guys, making up like that and being good mates now.
Yeah,
good stuff.
The WP and Up podcast series, if any of this sort of makes you think, oh, that sounds worth a listen, it's at wpandup.org/podcasts, and there's 9 episodes thus far. We alluded to something that we're doing slightly differently for the next couple of weeks, but sorry, Vito, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, actually, no. I'm just really, really proud to be part of this conversation where both of you guys are pushing such a beautiful charity. We work a lot with charities, and this has become my favorite one for sure.
Yay! And you certainly did something very nice, little gesture for us in your WP feedback. plugin, which is quite nice.
Mm.
Adding us into your support area, which is intriguing. Right, okay, a few nice little comments about that. Dave Toomey saying, Dan, maybe thanks for all your efforts regarding this. Matt Davis saying, Cory, glad to hear that Cory's joining WP up as a trustee. That's great news. Rich Flynn, totally agree. The first step can be the hardest to take. Yeah. Okay, right. Let's move on. We've done a few. We've got a few more left. I'm not going to mention security news too much, other than to say Convert Plus plugin had a problem this week. So if you've used that, I think it's somebody help me out here. Is this Brainstorm Force? Is that one of theirs?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Go and read. Click on the links in the show notes for this podcast episode. They've had a problem which has been patched. Privilege escalation flaw in Slick pop-up plugin. When I was recording that, I called it the Slick plop-up plugin. Re-record it. OS command injection vulnerability patched in WP database backup plugin. So, and one more. Malware infections of Joomla and WordPress. Again, just if any of that rings a bell, go and get yourself checked out. Okay, so segue. Brian Gardner, you were just talking about Genesis. Here we are. Look at that, slick as anything. Genesis 3.0.0 beta has come around, and my question before we started doing this was, do any of you guys still use Genesis? I never really did. But I know that it sounds like Dan still did, and I don't know if you got a chance to read this, Dan. But if you did, was there anything in there that you thought, "Oh, that's nice, that looks good"?
No, to be perfectly honest, I've not read through this. We used to be completely wed to Genesis. It was our default theme, and we've definitely it's definitely been a shift. We're using it less and less. Although there are still some sites, there are still some instances where it's the right tool for us.
Okay. In which case, I'll just briefly outline. They're creating more options regarding AMP, accessible mobile pages, and they're removing a lot of the legacy code that has been in there since right near the beginning. It says Genesis is 9 years old, and with that comes some baggage. Our team has been eyeing ways of cutting all that loose, and then there's a bullet point of about 10 items, removing unnecessary root template files, removing the theme and SEO page, content stuff into the customizer. Everything is now HTML5 that wasn't, and so on and so forth. And also they're getting rid of their blog template, which will probably mean that a lot of people have got to reconfigure stuff. But they mention that for ages they've had this little Easter egg option that they didn't really publicize. But if you've been using Genesis and you've been using the blog template, you probably want to go and read that article, because obviously it's beta. No doubt they'll inform you guys anyway, but just there you go. So, all right. Genesis updated. What else have we got? Toolset have put out a couple of things this week. The first one is they've got this $29 or free if you are a member of, if you've got a subscription or a lifetime license to Toolset. And it's all about custom types training. I guess in some way it is cross-promoting their Toolset types plugin. And it's just a $29 investment. And the idea is it teaches you about how to set up custom post types, custom fields, relationships, and all that stuff. So if you're new to WordPress and you've never done that before, that might be quite useful. And the other Toolset article was that Maps now, their Toolset's Maps plugin can now suck in dynamic data. So, for example, if you've got an address field in a custom post type, that will automatically populate pins in Maps. I didn't realize it didn't do that previously, but now it does. So that's quite nice. I suppose you could, have a custom post type and have multiple instances. I can imagine a whole bunch of uses of that. Plus, you can also style things now that were unstylable in the visual editor. You can now do that instead of doing everything with HTML switched on. You can now do that in the visual editor. Probably nobody's got anything to say about that, so I'll move on.
I think this is actually something that that we will see a lot of plugins go to. First of all, I've been using Toolset for a few years now, and it's like that's our choice, our weapon of choice when it comes to post types and custom fields, and so on. And getting a mini course or something like that to get the user to really get the most out of your product is something that a lot of plugin developers are missing. And just by giving this, if you have a subscription, get it for free, get trained, and then you know how to do it. I actually, for a lot of SaaS products, I look for these things. For ActiveCampaign, I did the full-on course to really understand how that works. I'm really glad that it's starting to happen within the WordPress ecosystem as well. And I think there's a lot more plugins that needs to have these things in order for their users to maximize the use.
I've often thought that the complexity for developers is fairly. It's okay, you can do that stuff. You can tutor yourself, but quite nice to have step-by-step video tutorials for those people who are just just getting into it, and maybe they can't quite figure that stuff out. So yeah, it's nice. Haven't looked at it, but yeah, I think you're right. Paul, did you, or Dan? Sorry.
Just you and I both used to use Toolset quite a lot. I think, Nathan.
Yeah, we did.
And then I don't know about you, but I stopped using it. Didn't like put my foot down and say I'm not using it. I just started using ACF and pods a lot more. But every time I'm hearing about Toolset now, it's sounding more and more appealing. Every time it felt like they were just going into a bit of a code mess or something. Well, that's the buzz the vibe I used to get. And people saying you can only have one support ticket open and whatever. All these kind of negative. Everything I heard was kind of like a complaint. And it feels like there's lots of cool things going on there now, and it's somehow figured out a new position for itself. Maybe, I don't know. But this course it's great. I mean, they do good videos. They did some good videos about building whole websites for like real estate stuff like that. So I know their videos are probably pretty good. Yeah,
we've had Amir on a couple of times, maybe even 3 times now, and he's a really, really, really nice guy. And he, I just think it's a solid product. It seems to be polarizing, like your weapon of choice for custom post types. It's like, no, you don't want to use that. You want to use ACF. No, you want to use pods. No, you want to use Toolset or MetaBox, whatever it might be. If it works, it's working for Vito down there. Then down there, he's literally below me in the picture. So whatever works.
I think it was the old repeater problem they used to have.
Yeah.
For anyone who does use it,
I think they've ripped that up and started again. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's probably why I migrated away. So anyone who does use it will know what I'm talking about. Anyone else probably doesn't. But there was a fundamental challenge for anyone using it that they've solved now.
And I think a lot of the problem was, I think a lot of people like a little tool that does one thing really well, whereas Toolset is the opposite. It's trying to do a lot of very, very complicated stuff, and it's difficult. It is a difficult thing to pull off. Yeah, and it isn't easy. You've got to go through quite a lot of steps to get a view to work and to be, configurable so that it doesn't show in this situation but does show in this situation. And you just got to learn their UI, and once you've done that, you're golden.
It's good.
Okay, right. Let's move on. So the next one is WPML. So 3 articles from the Toolset guys, because WPML Toolset, same system, on-the-go systems is the mother company. Page Builder framework. I don't really know what to say other than that it is now compatible with the Page Builder framework. I don't know if it was like partially compatible, although it is now fully compatible. We had David on last week, and I know that all of you at some point recently spent some time with David. Seems to be
in a room in WordCamp with him.
Yeah. Oh, are you? Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. Full disclosure, he is. Sorry, just quick full disclosure. He is a sponsor of the podcast, but that's not the reason he's on here. So end of disclosure. But it seems to be whenever we talk about themes these days, if you go back several years, maybe it was Genesis. Nowadays, there's a handful, maybe 3 or 4 that get mentioned over and over and over again, and the Page Builder framework is in that conversation wherever I go anyway. So it's doing a good job and things like this. I don't know whose job that is to do, because it's on the WPML website. I don't know if that was David that built that or if it was the guys at Toolset that built that. But
it's probably some collaboration in those sort of things, right? So. A situation where it's is it worth it to do a PML? Is it worth it for David to help? And I mean, just something on David. It's impossible to not like that guy. He is awesome guy.
David, I hope you're watching because this is high praise indeed coming from the Lacey. That's good. That is nice. I mean, it's a solid theme, and I think if you're going to do internationalization, WPML is it's got a strong heritage. So that collaboration, if you've got the page builder framework, if you've got WPML, or if you need a reason to do that, that seems like a good place to start looking anyway. So there we go. Great. Anybody else? Keep losing you on my screen. There we go. No. Okay, right. Let's move on then. The next one. What is the next one? I keep losing my tabs. Okay, just very quickly, a couple of things we did on WP Builds. David and I put an article. David Wormsley and I put. Sorry, I can't help laughing. We literally thought it was unlistenable, this particular episode. We recorded it, and then as soon as it was recorded, nobody's going to want to listen to that. Anyway, I put it out, and some people rather liked it. It was all about personality types, because David's got a background in psychology, it turns out. And he was sort of saying, wouldn't it be interesting if you could kind of like figure out what the personality type of your client was, and if there's any like mileage in that? And it was really interesting. Turns out there are like this list of personality types. You can go to this website if you go on and listen to the podcast, and you fill out the questionnaire. It takes about 10 minutes, and you come out as a particular personality type. I came out as mediator. But I think probably mediocre would have satisfied. And apparently I share that characteristic with William Shakespeare, and Frodo Baggins.
Oh, I love it. Perfect.
Anyway, how did they do a personality test with Frodo? I mean,
I don't know. Famous fictional characters from history. Yeah. Go and check it out. After listening to it, a few people wrote very nice comments. So thank you if you did listen to it. I really appreciate it. Saying, "Oh, did you?"
Yeah, it was one of my favorite. Wow. It was just so relevant because everyone's thinking about, not everyone, but I'm thinking about niches and stuff like that. Yeah. And then you forget to think, what will the people be like to work with? So it wasn't really so much thinking about the personality type. It just got me thinking, wait a minute, just think slightly, get rid of the tunnel vision on these ideas sometimes, and start thinking outside the box about the decisions that you're making.
Also, just the thought that there's a whole bunch of other people who react differently to the exact same stimulus as you. So you'll react in one way and they will react in another way. And having a little window, because I know zero about that kind of stuff. I mean, less than zero. I'm a blunt instrument, frankly. And so getting a little insight, exactly, mediocre, sums me up beautifully. Getting a little tiny insight from the website and the surveys and the stuff that I read around it was quite interesting. However, wait a couple of weeks. We recorded another one on the same day, which was so much worse. I mean, really bad. So see how that goes. I don't even know if I'm going to put it out, to be honest. I might well record it again with David. It was a nice subject, but I think we absolutely messed it up. And Vito, I've already mentioned this, so I hope you don't. I hope you forgive me for glossing over this. We recorded a webinar with Vito about his fabulous WP feedback plugin. Okay, right. Now I've really got to do better with my tabs. Where are they? There we go. So the next few are completely non-related to WordPress. Chrome DevTools. This is on searchenginejournal.com. Chrome DevTools can override geographic location. I actually, in the days when I was doing Magento work and e-commerce, I bought like VPNs and things like that just so that I could mimic what the cart would look like and stuff like that. And obviously now we're into this territory of funnels and I've forgotten the word. It begins with C, but a message that you put out that's different for somebody. Conditional logic. That's what I'm after. This person's from North America. Let's present them with a different message and so on. And you can now spoof this in Chrome, which I think is rather nice. Anybody?
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Save one of the 36 extensions that I have on there.
Yeah. I recently came across a tool called If So. It was about 6 months ago, and it does this kind of stuff. I believe quite nicely. It's probably a little bit heavy because it tries to do an awful lot, but it does this kind of stuff really well. So you would be able to test quite nicely. I don't know, what kind of image you're displaying or what flag you've got in the corner or something like that, or what text you want to use. You might want to swap out something or other. But quite nice that it's built into Chrome. It's a bit of a fudge. You've got to work a little bit to make it work, but it works.
Yeah. We're using it for a client, actually.
You like it?
Yeah, we're using it for a client. Well, the use case isn't probably what they invented it for, but one client has lots of affiliates for their landing page, and they didn't want 100 landing pages. So they're just using if so to have a different link on a button depending on the URL. So there's like a something in the URL that identifies it as that particular affiliate and dynamically changes the button to their affiliate link, and a few other text bits and a couple of testimonials are different as well. It's perfect for that.
Yeah, it's a nice. Sorry, Dan, go on.
We just use it for a client for their contact page, actually, because they've got dozens and dozens of different offices and phone numbers and addresses, and it just made sense to have that depending on where they came from.
Oh, I'm pleased it's working out for so many people. Then it feels to me, maybe it's been around for years and years and years, but when I came across it, let's say 6 months ago, I felt like it was new, but maybe it's been around for ages.
I pinged it across the beta, just out of beta.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Well, there we're plugging a plugin.
I can plug something. Yeah, on this sense, if we're all doing that.
Go for it.
So I did a talk with Pecha Neri on her Design for Geeks channel, and I think it was episode 2 of a 3-part thing, and we did it about customization. Well, what was the word again?
Conditional logic.
Conditional logic for different user flows. So, for instance, user comes to your website, they see the main call to action and the secondary, but if they don't go for the main one and they do join the mailing list, and then when they come in from the mailing list a second time, don't show them the mailing list thing again, show them the main call to action and just double down on that. And so we did a talk on that, on how you can implement things like if so.
That's awesome.
For that specific reason. So
everybody call paullacey.com if you need conditional logic.
I don't know where that website goes. It's on Design for Geeks, Pecha Neri's Facebook page.
There's a course in there somewhere, Paul. You could create yourself a nice conditional logic course. Conditional logic with Paul Lacey. It's a win.
Someone else create a course and I'll just
yeah. Oh no, that's nice. Nice little conversation. Okay, next one. Google Chrome. This is on the aforementioned WP Tavern website. Unusually covering Google news this week. Google mobile first indexing is now default for new domains. Right. So everybody sit up because this actually matters. So now, from now on, whatever website you throw out there, if it's a new domain that's never been registered before, Google will index the mobile site first. Secondary will be desktop. If you've got a current domain which has been registered prior to whatever date the article mentioned, it's going to stay with desktop. There is no, I don't know what the time frame is for flipping that over. 1st of July, so it's actually a week or two from today. But we're all subservient to the mighty Google, as we saw yesterday when they decided to give up for a couple of hours. Sorry, that was really rude, wasn't it? They didn't give up. Some engineer was freaking out, and I've just dismissed it as giving up. But this matters, for your clients, especially if you want to be noticed on search now more than ever. You've got to compel them to look at the mobile version of everything, like at number 1.
Yeah. How would we describe this to say a client, like in a really serious way?
I would say what you need to do is go to wptavern.com/Google's-no. I don't know. This conversation is the most boring conversation to have, isn't it?
Can anyone hear what he's saying?
Yes. I can't hear.
Can you not hear me?
No.
Oh. Hang on.
Thanks for that great advice, Nathan. Now I know exactly what to say to my clients.
Oh, I feel like such a lemon. My dad used to phone people up and say,
It's so quiet. Can anyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, you really can't hear us.
Nathan, can you hear Nathan?
Yes.
Anybody hear me?
All right, okay. Maybe I've muted him.
Paul, refresh again. I actually thought Paul Lacey was stringing me along then, because if he was doing that coincidentally, I said, "Can you hear me?" and he said yes or something. My dad used to phone people up and say, "Can you give me your phone number? I've completely forgotten what it is." And like 9 times out of 10, people would
I don't know what
say,
you're laughing at, because I can't hear Nathan at all.
"Refresh,
Refresh.
refresh, refresh."
Saying
I'm
refresh.
saying,
Okay.
yeah, refresh.
Yes,
Can everybody else hear? Anyway, sorry, a bit of an aside. I don't know what an easy way to make this available to clients is, because it's a really boring subject, but I do think it's important.
But what's going to be the implications in terms of the client? So if, for example, a client doesn't have the mobile optimization up, then it's kind of an upsell.
I just think it's like,
answer if that's what he meant.
Yeah, I just think it's like the important conversation to have. You know, everybody that I work with, we sit at a computer, and that's the way we design the site. And maybe now it's got to be we sit at a phone and design the site, and then after we've done the phone bit, we're going to work backwards and look at how it looks on the desktop, which I've never ever done, and I'm sure that we've all probably done it in reverse, designed the site and said, "Oh, look how it looks, look how great I've done this on the phone, aren't you pleased?" And maybe we need to do it that way. 50-something%, I think we're into the low 50s% of searches, all searches now done on mobile. So I think ultimately the desktop is doomed. Anybody? Bueller?
It's a good thing.
Okay.
It's definitely a good thing.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, right. Last one then in that case is very quick an aside. Slack. We're all using Slack, I expect. I speak to Dan on a daily basis on Slack. I didn't realize Slack. It's a paywalled article. I do apologize. You can only get so far on it, and I did only get so far. I'm just bringing it to your attention because I didn't realize that Slack is the result of a failed game. It was designed as a game which went wrong. It wasn't successful, and so they pivoted it, and out of it came Slack. And they did it for the second time. They did Flickr on the same basis. Apparently the website that we all used to use for photography apparently was the same thing. They had an idea for a game and it pivoted it to be a photographic website. So there you go. That's the interest. That's the interest I took from that anyway.
I think the interesting about this is the idea that they pivoted from a completely different market. So they tried to take whatever they had on their search for product market fit, and I think that's the strongest lesson to do here, because I know for myself a lot of the times I should have pivoted, but you just kind of like think that you can still make it work. You're just pounding at something for months and months instead of just trying to look at this from a little different angle and creating the best chat system in the world out of a game.
Amazing, eh? Amazing. Unfortunately, the paywall got in my way, so I really did want to keep reading, but sadly, I am a consumer of the internet for free. It would be nice if we had another model for that, but there you go. I've got, that's all I wanted to say, but I know that somebody, I think at the beginning, had something they wanted to add. Was it anybody?
Yes, I wanted to add. I wanted to say that last Tuesday, we launched the founding members promotion, which means that we're inviting everyone that is listening and all of your friends that are building WordPress websites for clients to come and check out wpfeedback.co. And there's up to 70% discount, and there is a lifetime offer that is not going to stay after the launch. We're actually, I'm really surprised by the traction that happened in the past week. We talked about this, Nathan and Paul as well, over the weekend, and I'm just very thankful to everyone that already bought the plugin and already joined. But there's still a couple hundred more spots left on the founding members, so come on board.
Okay, thank you. Very nice.
It's not just for clients though. I mean, we're using it more internally between me and my one of the team guys, Adrian, for really quick back and forth feedback about intricate visual elements that need tweaking and stuff.
Amazing. So internal communications.
Yeah.
Yes. So the word pivot comes to mind again.
Right. Well, actually, that's an interesting use case, because I thought of this as how I can, like, it came as a solution for my own business, for my own WordPress agency, just to communicate with clients that have no idea about the digital world. But we're seeing really interesting use cases. Like, there's this guy that is using it as a tool to communicate. He's like a UX consultant, so he puts it on on his clients' websites, and they just sprinkle stickers on there just to show them what's going on and get that deal. And then he takes it off and moves on to the next projects where he pastes this thing. So it's kind of a review process. Instead of from the client to him, that's how he reviews websites that were already designed to get the sale. And there was a couple of magazines that are using this to communicate between the content providers, the editors, the people that are actually writing the content, the advertisers in there as well. So yeah, as long as there's communications within one WordPress website, more than one individual, this will save loads and loads of time for sure.
Groovy. Dan, anything happening for you this week that's notable that you'd like to mention? Anything over at WPML, for example?
I think a lot has been mentioned already. Obviously, we've just launched the mini WordCamp series going into WordCamp Europe. Again, that's at wpml.org/podcasts. That's exciting. I mean, we were actually planning on the last one live at WordCamp Europe, so that'll be a bit of fun. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Yes.
Dan, is the survey that we mentioned earlier, is that still up and going?
No, that's closed.
That's gone. Okay.
Closed now. So now we're number crunching and getting some of the stats and data out of it. So all the data from that will be open sourced, will be made available to the community.
Okay, thank you, Dan. And is there anything, Paul, you would like to mention before we knock it on the head?
Normally there's nothing, but I'm recording. Tomorrow, I think. Recording with Peach and Neri again, the part 3 of that UX for Everyone.
Nice.
She launched a course as well, right?
She's launching a course. Yeah, I don't know if it has launched yet, but so I think that the thing that we record might be inside that course. But the one we're doing tomorrow is part 3, and it's because it's called UX for Everyone. It's just very basic UX user experience stuff. So we're just doing a very kind of simple real life usability. User experience case where we did some optimization on our Dickiebirds website. When we did some basic analytics, saw a major problem, and realized we were looking at it from the wrong side, and just exactly how we tweaked it. So it's a very, very simple. We've noticed this. Here was our hypothesis, and this is what happened. And this is it's about split testing, basically. We did some split testing.
Is that a live thing?
I don't know if it's not going to be recorded live, because I think there was too many problems with Facebook Live recordings and stuff previously. So I think it's going to be pre-recorded and then probably streamed live, but not live.
Okay.
As far as I know.
But can you remember the name? Design for Geeks.
Yes. Design for Geeks is the
name of her Facebook group, so no doubt there'll be notifications about that. I realise I've overrun. I'm very, very sorry to you three. I know it's also very easy for me to sit here and thank you for making the effort, but I actually mean it. Thank you, you three, for bothering to come and talk to me.
Really enjoyed it, Nathan. Really enjoyed it. I really love talking with all the different people personally. Yep. It's fantastic.
Yeah, well, I'm pleased. Sometimes I feel like, I'm using up these people's valuable time, but thank you. I really appreciate it. Any comments that you want to make, put them in the comments, below, because that's where they go. And we'll knock it on the head there. Thank you very much, guys.